Hi, my name is Crystal. This Saturday night, the UFC returns, and BetStamps has joined up with the Todd Atkins Show to provide a one-stop shop website for all of your gambling needs. When you visit Todd's page, signupexpert.com/TAS, you'll be connected to all of the sports books in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique benefits. All of these sports books have valuable offers for new users. So when you register through MyLink, you'll automatically receive the top offers at each one. So if you want to take advantage of these benefits and support the Todd Atkins Show, please consider signing up for your next sports book at expertsignup.com/TAS. Again, my name is Crystal, and you can find me on TikTok at unapologeticallyme0424. Happy gambling!
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Drew with High Fight IQ, and you are now watching the MMA Conspiracy Hour with my boys Todd Atkins and Miguel Iturrate. Miguel has been the matchmaker for over 200 shows worldwide and has worked with Hook and Shoot, Euphoria, Bodog, and ADCC. Make sure you subscribe to the Todd Atkins Show on YouTube. You can also find Miguel on his YouTube channel at MMA Collector 74. Don't forget to subscribe to High Fight IQ on all social media platforms, the House Call Sports on YouTube, the Fight Pit on YouTube. Now let's talk some fights, baby. Let's go.
All right, so it's Todd Atkins, and I'm back with Miguel Iturrate, and for another episode of the MMA Conspiracy Hour. Not really conspiracy, this particular topic, but before we start, I just as always want to thank our sponsors, Live to Fight Design and BetStamp. And Miguel, latest news we've heard, Jon Jones has kind of got a little bit of an incident again.
Go over the details. Go over the details for the people. What was this incident?
Yeah. Well, from what I know, I mean, just from what I read, he had threatened a female employee, a female drug testing employee, which may be more serious than a male testing employee, perhaps. But someone had showed up to take one of the new, drug-free sport UFC affiliate now. Showed up to his house. I don't know what time it was, but it was early apparently, and Jon Jones threatened to kill her, I guess is what they were saying. You know, I didn't hear any of the audio myself, so I don't know, but that's what the alleged was. And that, Jones made some remarks that I don't even know why he made this remark. You know what happens, people show up by house, they get killed. Has he killed someone before that we don't know of? Is that why he said that? So a lot of weird stuff going on with this, and I just thought I'd let you kind of get your opening thoughts in. I know we've talked about Jones before, so.
It's April 2024. In the last 4 years, he's fought precisely once. And there are reasons for it. They give you the heavyweight, they move to heavyweight, you need to bulk up, this or the other thing. I think that, we've seen him run into problems before with this, which is basically, it amounts to the same problem of Conor. And it might even be the same problem, which is it might be some substance abuse going on in there. But at the essence of it is guys who have a talent that makes them something elite, and their ego cannot handle it, and they think that they're qualified or able or can do whatever they want. I don't know exactly how to quantify. I think that's the case with Jones. Is the Jones, you mentioned it's worse for a woman, in these days of equality, right? How much would you have to be trained in the last 10, 15 years to even be a threat to Jones? Your average cop that lifts weights and, maybe takes a couple of classes and stuff like that, you're going to need 10 cops to slow this guy down. You know, if you're going to do it without a weapon, you know, without a gun or whatever. There's nobody. So, you know, him threatening a man or a woman is an immense problem with the ego, because there's no, you know, that's like me threatening a child, you know, like a 5-year-old is acting up in the airplane and his mom's not looking. I grab him by the neck and be like, I'm going to kill you, to try to scare him. That's literally what this is like, because Jon Jones is one of the most elite people in the world. So why does his ego need to do that? And we've seen it time and time again. I can tell you very honestly that behind the scenes, I've interviewed a lot of people, coming up on hundreds of interviews of MMA people. Many of them from Jackson Wink. Some of them from Jackson Wink. Some of them have spent time with Jones. Many of those people say, I don't want to go on record talking about him. There's something about the guy that scares people and worries people, and he likes to be the intimidator and things like that. That's a real ego problem. He's used cocaine in the past. He's, you know, we ran into that recently with Conor, and we know that cocaine was a drug that may come out of your system in a couple of days. But he's between fights. They're trying to make a fight. We don't know when he's going to fight, this or the other stuff. Who knows if this poor lady walked in and he just happened to have done it yesterday, in which case it would show up in his bloodstream. And that might have been the catalyst to it. That's just speculation on my part. But what would make him try to intimidate and jump through his procedure? There's the famous story of him hiding practically all day under the Jackson Wink octagon to avoid a drug test before. You know? So, yeah, you're looking at the facts of the matter is that the UFC and their two biggest stars right now have a massive ego problem that in all likelihood is driven by substance abuse. If not, they still have a massive ego problem. And, you know, this doesn't look good for Jones. I mean, what the UFC should do is they should suspend him immediately. The bottom line is they got rid of USADA. They brought in this new group. And if this new group is ever going, this is 4 months into this new group's reign. We haven't heard. Have you heard of anybody getting tested before this? I'm not saying it didn't go on. They're probably just kind of getting adjusted and doing their job. Go ahead.
I think Walt Harris, didn't he get suspended for like 4 years just recently?
I missed that piece of news.
Yeah, he did. So I guess they were the ones that caught him.
Okay. I suspected that they were out there doing their job, is what I was getting at.
A 4-year suspension. I'm wondering what they caught him for. That's a long time.
Yeah, especially for a guy who's been around a little bit.
Yeah.
And, you know, if ever there was a figure in the sport that you kind of want to root for, it's Walt Harris. Isn't he the guy whose daughter was kidnapped and was murdered?
Yes.
Yeah, and he tried to fight in the immediate aftermath of that, and the baggage sort of proved to be too much. Former basketball player, a lot of potential, big guy, you know, and a heavyweight, you know, maybe not a championship heavyweight, but a serviceable, solid heavyweight that you could add to the mix there. And so now you've lost him. If he got suspended 4 years, I suspect he didn't threaten to kill the person taking the test. So what would Jon Jones's proper suspension be?
You know, just
again,
the whole.
Again, like I said, if I grabbed a kid on an airplane and grabbed him and said, you know, I'm tired of your mouth, shut up, or I'll kill you, you know, I'd be in real trouble. And in a physical confrontation with no weapon, no nothing, where somebody is just trying to do their job, like at a store or in this case, Jon Jones is extremely dangerous. For him to be flouting that is definitely not a good sign, you know? And the UFC, to me, the UFC really needs to back up this new group that's doing the testing, they bought USADA in and they touted USADA as great, but by the end, we'll just say the relationship had soured, and they were not happy with USADA, and now they bought in this group. It took a few years for them to get sour with USADA. Is this going to be really a 4-month reign? And then what's the UFC going to do? Go out and get another group to do this testing? It begins to look more and more like a farce.
Just something interesting you bring up, because she didn't go straight to the police right away, because the heads of this testing entity told her they wanted to speak with the UFC first.
Yeah.
What do you think of
that? The UFC would probably, I don't know if the UFC has encouraged that, but I don't think that they minded that phone call came to them first so they could try to manage the situation in any way, shape, or form. It's what they do as a business practice. We had Bob Mazy talk about how in their contracts they complicated them enough. So, like, for example, if I'm a movie producer and I want to make a movie about any one of their fighters, the life story of their fighters, I would, I'd be like, okay, what are your contract obligations? And I'd look at their contract. It's complicated enough to be like, all right, I got to talk to these people. And they immediately involve themselves. So now they've involved themselves here, and we'll find out how strong or not strong this testing group is. I suspect the USADA, part of the reason they went down is because they were starting to, maybe get some wings or feel comfortable in their role. And I don't know if this group is even going to get a chance to do that, Again, I thought we found out in Brazil, and in Brazil, it wasn't a matter of threatening people. It was a matter of just being aloof, It's we didn't know you were coming. The boxing commission or the MMA commission didn't let us know you were coming. And I think it was Jose Aldo or some, guys were running out the back door.
Vanderlei.
Yeah.
It was Vanderlei Silva.
Okay, I think there were more than one incident, maybe, but but that's the point. Is you need a team to do this. If this woman went to Jon Jones's home alone, her job put her at risk. And that's with just any fighter. Because, being threatened is a different level, and Jones has crossed that level. But any type of obstruction that they run into, a normal, average person who's going to be obstructed by a fighter, put the coach in front of him and start talking to him. Give me a second. So, if one person, or even just a pair of people, one guy driving the car and then the other person with, the vial for the PP, if that's how they're approaching going to do this testing, then they're way off. And a woman is going to do this? Now, I thought, is it urine test or is it blood test? What are they doing? Because if it's urine test, you're putting a woman in a position where, either she's going to let John go into the bathroom, who knows, whose piss you're going to get, or she's got to watch him do it, which is, kind of wildly inappropriate. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and if it's a blood test, she's a nurse or somebody who's at least capable of drawing blood. You have to do that with somebody who's very cooperative. Like I said, we've already seen in Brazil, obstruction of putting the coach in front while the fighter sneaks out the back door. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden they can't find it and the person's there. And then there's a problem there.
Yeah.
The UFC has kind of an unlimited budget, so they're not going to worry, but like, for example, in Brazil with USADA, USADA's getting the check to use their monthly budget. And they budget a trip to Brazil to go get this stuff, and now they got to eat rescheduling plane tickets. It's just almost the same problems that you run into with booking a fight. But rescheduling plane tickets, extra hotel rooms, extra meals, you know, the per diem for the people going down there. And then all of a sudden, once you analyze it and you say, look, we got to go with a team of maybe half a dozen people to get this done properly, then all of a sudden, you know, budgetary problems are there. And all of it, so USADA had sort of overcome some of that. You know, they were tracking the fighters, and the fighters had to let them know where they were going to go. So, you know, if I decided to take my wife to Cancun and they had the budget for it, they could show up in Cancun and ask me for a test, right? So you would assume USADA had overcome some of that. But I don't know. Maybe I haven't been on top of it as much, but at least they haven't been as public or in the public explaining exactly what the procedure is that this new company is doing. USADA was copied off of VADA, and they attend to other sports and things. So there was an established procedure that other sports and things have accepted. Now this is kind of like a UFC employee doing it. So what is the process? Did they actually go back to sending one person to the tests? And again, you know, and Jones's reaction is the problem to me with Jon Jones, and this has been from the very beginning, you know, from when he crashes Bentley in Ithaca, you know, and I've been to Jon Jones's hometown in upstate New York, and I present to you that that's probably one of the first Bentleys that they'd seen up there. So he stuck out like a sore thumb. He was already known. He was already this, that, or the other stuff. But from back then to now, the only thing is, you know, to the drug test, the car accident hurting a female who I think broke her arm, a pregnant female, to wearing spandex at 1 a.m, you know, among the homeless people in New Mexico. Who knows what he was doing there, to admitting in an interview that, you know, he did cocaine a week before fighting Daniel Cormier. The only thing Jon Jones has ever been sorry about is that he's gotten caught. There's been no real consequence, therefore there's been no real act of change in him. He's still the same person. He's just behaving differently in certain modes so that some of this stuff doesn't get shown. But he can't control himself every once in a while. And I think that's what you see here. The monstrous ego. What would happen to me if I threatened somebody, a woman? What would happen to you if you threatened a woman? And you know, I'm nothing compared to Jon Jones. I mean, Jon could do damage to somebody in seconds. So I think like a threat from him, that woman had to be scared. She had to take it serious. You have to take that seriously. You know, what's he going to say? I was joking. You don't joke around with stuff like that. It's like joking around with a gun, because he is who he is. You know, just my opinion, a monstrous ego with a lot of ignorance. I don't think he's that smart. But he's got all the money in the world, and he tends to go and do things on the down low kind of thing. We've seen that a lot. Again, the video of the police officers talking to him while he's in his car, and you know, on the you know, for lack of a better term, down you know, in Skid Row in the you know, Albuquerque town. Again, look at his reaction is, man, he got caught and he's just trying to talk his way out of it. He's trying to do the, you know, I don't see anybody who's ever said to him, look, you got to change this behavior. And again, and he's getting older, you know. I mean, there's certain, like, the same exact thing with Conor. And that's the other big problem here, is that the UFC's two biggest stars are real problems. Because when you have a 23 or 25-year-old who's going crazy, you know, you can almost understand it, or you think, you know, with some experience, they'll get better. A lot of people get over these problems. But now they're into their 30s. Now they're in late 30s. Now they're into a situation where they've got a decade of behaving like this. It's going to be very hard to change these people. It's going to be very hard to explain to them that this behavior is just something that, for whatever reason, you better control the necessity to do it. So,
I
yeah,
mean, if you
Jon,
let him hide under your octagon, I mean, who was there at that time? Because that seemed like something where the gym just said, well, there's no line we won't cross for you.
or, and you know, he's probably paying a fee and stuff like that. So there may have been, as you said, a protection of their client and of their money stream. But could there be an intimidation factor? I'm not telling on Jon Jones. I don't want to deal with Jon afterwards.
Yeah.
Could people have been scared of him?
Yeah.
I present to you that at least some of the people in that room worried about, I ain't going to be the guy. I don't want to deal with him.
Yeah.
You know, so, and that's the thing about Jones is Jones, like, you could see it in his personality. You could see him. The nice guy part of him is an act. He's not a nice guy. He's an egotist. He's all about Jon. And that's the kind of thing where it's like everybody has an ego to a certain extent. And when you get to the elite levels like these guys have, Jones, you know, widely considered the best fighter that we've ever seen. You know, Jones could comfortably say he could beat up every man on the planet and believe himself. Not to mention every woman, right? Man, woman, and child. He's the toughest guy in the world, kind of thing. How does it? So he thinks that makes him be able to get out of things, scare people. How many times has this intimidation stuff worked? You know, a lone cop on a traffic stop where he's doing nonsense. Visible drug paraphernalia. This is just speculation on my part. But if I were a cop and I stopped him at night at 11 and I saw active drug paraphernalia there and he was threatening me, and there was some way where, you know, he worried me, and I know I can call for backup and stuff, but backup's 5 minutes away, a couple minutes away. You're not going to get backed up immediately, and this guy could do you damage immediately. Again, that's speculation. It's wild speculation on my part. But I think that Jon enjoys that intimidation, that making people nervous. A lot of people with egos do. Makes them feel in control. I don't know exactly what the buzz is. But at the end of the day, he's meat and bones, and something is wrong with that package. And and again, he's fought once in 4 years. You know, his bank account, I mean, he's got plenty of money, right? That's what they say, right? But it can't be skyrocketing. He didn't open a whiskey company. You know, he doesn't have, as far as we can tell, he's still really a pro fighter with that as his main interest and main source of income. Obviously, he could do privates and seminars and things like that. I don't see him actively out on that circuit as well, but maybe it's more on the down low and he makes a fortune for doing it. But he should be interested in getting back in the ring at some point. So why mess with somebody that's, once this transaction gets done, you're that much closer to actually a big payday and getting yourself back to active and doing what you're famous for. So it's a self-destruction kind of nature in his ego that's there that doesn't make any sense. Again, and the rudimentary explanation to me is that he was doing drugs. He got caught that weekend or whatever, and therefore he's trying to get out of it, come back tomorrow. All right, what was the intimidation? Who knows exactly what went on there? You know what I could do to you? You know, threatening to kill people. People show up at my house, I kill them. Does that sound super smart? No. You know? So, yeah, to me, the UFC again, and the UFC won't do this, but I think, you see some situations in the NFL and some of the other active sports leagues where, nobody kind of gets away with certain things. And Jon Jones has a litany of things that people have been like, okay, these are punishable offenses. He should be suspended, gotten rid, and now he's threatening a woman from a company that's a UFC company that was set up a few months ago only to take care of a job that's kind of something that has to be done for the fight game now. People like to hear that the fighters are clean and things like that. They're not doing any work to say, look, we don't care. We're just going to let them do that. And we're going to switch the slant of the medical care towards caring for them as they do steroids, making sure they do it in the most healthy way possible and the best way possible to get the most extreme and best performances. That is the attitude of Russia, where they have a vigilant program of people doing steroids with a national program of doctors and medical personnel that are looking at it. The UFC, maybe they're doing that in secret, but then it makes no sense what they're doing here. So I think that they're caught out in the cold. They've got Jones, and maybe it's steroids that he's doing. He hasn't signed a contract yet, so he considers himself inactive or between fights or whatever status you want to call it. And he's juicing up. I want to look up something here. I want to look at. I know Conor is 35 or 36 right now. I want to see exactly how old Jon Jones is at this point, because we've been dealing with this guy and these types of problems for almost a decade now, right? So how old is he? He's
he's close to 40.
It says he's 36, born in 87.
Okay.
Now, is that math right? Should that be 38? 87, 13, and then 24. Yeah, it's 36, 37. So he's born in July. So in July, he's going to be 37 years old. Same as Conor. Now, the heavyweights, maybe, we've presented the idea that heavyweights have maybe more of a lifespan. So he could still be looking at a couple of years where he could be monetizing big time. But again, if the UFC were just a sport and they weren't just interested in making money, because at the end of the day, this is more publicity that will put more eyes on his next fight. If they weren't just interested, they should get rid of this guy. He's been a liability now for 10 years.
Yeah.
And without the UFC protecting him, without that around, how long will it be if he doesn't have a job? How long will it be before he does something to somebody or winds up crossing the line again? Maybe he never does. Maybe he realizes it and he stays home and he just becomes a normal guy who's pretty tough, But that doesn't look like it. I think with the UFC keeping him, on the roster, it almost may protect him a little bit, because he could be off the rails if they let him go. But they should let him go. And consequences are consequences. He's never paid consequences the way he should. And it's time to pay the piper in my book. If they don't let him go, it's just another example of how hungry they are for money and how willing they are to look the other way when money is dangled in front of them.
Do you think that Jones will fight Stipe this year?
That fight he's already been, since his last fight, it's been more than a year. And there have been reasons, the last show of the year, the November show, the Super Bowl show. He should have been on any one of those cards. And he fought in March of 2023. So by all means, if he was in the rotation like normal as a top star, okay, 6 to 8 months between fights so that they could build a media machine and go ahead and run it. So he should have fought before the end of last year. And he didn't. That could be for a number of reasons, including UFC politics and things like that. But again, Stipe, I have no worries about Stipe. Stipe, I know, spends 24 hours at the fire station, then goes home and probably has 3 or 4 days with his family, and then has to go back and do a 24-hour shift again. I think that's the way firemen work.
Yep.
And he doesn't need to also, I go down to the bar, or, I got to scare people at Walmart, let people know I'm the heavyweight champion. I'm the guy with the longest winning streak in heavyweight history. I know some pretty intimidating Eastern European dudes. Stipe could play that card, and he doesn't, because his ego's in check. He realizes he's a cog in the machine, and they've brushed him aside. They've denied him opportunities to even add to his legacy, because he hasn't fought in ages either. They're just letting fighters in their prime eat up their prime, sitting out. So this is mismanagement on the UFC's part as well as everything else. But just look at the difference between how Stipe manages it and how Jones manages it. The fireman job isn't 9 to 5, but Stipe has a job. You don't hear Jones, opened the gym and now he's, sitting in the office managing his gym every day. Connor's got a million things going on, the bar, this, that, the other stuff, but Connor's got his time. Jones seems to just be kind of waiting around, and okay, the fight's not happening, I'm fine with that. I'm going to do my thing. And what his thing is definitely has a dark side. So yeah, to me, they should cut him or suspend him, indefinitely, or give him if Walt Harris ate 4 years, he should eat a 5-year suspension. Because he'll never escape if he didn't. At the end of the day, here's a question. So he intimidated this lady. Did they get the sample? Was he being a jerk and being intimidating and stuff, but at the end of the day, let these people do their job and take a sample? Because if they didn't get the sample, then, again, just speculation, but with cocaine leaving your system within 72 hours and his history with cocaine, then the fact is that you can definitely have circumstantial evidence there that he's trying to hide continued drug use.
Well, the lady said he seemed intoxicated.
What does intoxicated mean?
Yeah,
Beer,
yeah,
or was he like Con?
Yeah, it could be anything.
Cocaine, you can hide some cocaine use, but if you're on a good binge, using it for a couple of days straight or using an excessive amount of it, then you start to look like Connor, and you start to be noticeable, and you start to be overacting.
I agree with you though. If you prevent someone from taking a sample, that's the same as a positive test in my book.
Yeah, to me, and with cocaine leaving your system in 72, so he could come back at the end of this week and say, I'll take the test if it's cocaine. If it's steroids, we got a different problem. And the UFC would probably, keep in mind, Brock Lesnar tested positive. They knew it, and they let him fight.
Yeah.
So they're not good, they're not good arbiters for this stuff, because at the end of the day, they're going to look and see, again, all this does is create more publicity for Jones's next fight. And more, therefore, the money might go up, and that money is all the UFC cares about. So, yeah, I think we're in one of those situations where we get to watch them, and we get to see, they say that in the next 60 days after the lawsuit got settled, that we would see something. Mark Hunt hinted that the UFC had some piper that they had to pay and that they wouldn't exist by October, by August. Now, the government could come in and say, no, you're forced to break up as a monopoly. But I think the UFC, I don't know how that procedure works. Those laws are old, and I'm not a lawyer. But barring that, that's an interesting line of speculation. You want to talk conspiracy. So let's say the UFC is broken up as a monopoly sometime in the short future, and Jones is a free agent. Does the PFL sign him?
Wouldn't surprise me.
The PFL, at the very least, hasn't shown that behavior of the UFC where money trumps everything. Maybe with this presented to him, it would, and they would sign him. But maybe they would leave him out there and be like, no, he's not worth it. And it's the same old thing with this guy. Again, his ego, and again, if he were here, he'd want to shut me up, maybe grab me by the neck. Be very upset at what I'm saying. That's his ego. It's the same thing as Conor. There's nobody around Jon Jones. Like Greg Jackson, I don't even know if he still trains in New Mexico with Greg Jackson and Winklejohn. And I understand that whole super gym thing has changed in the last few years as well. So I don't know if they're two separate gyms now or whatever. But whatever it is, the people training him, John walks in the gym. They put him through the exercises. Maybe they go over some technique. They do whatever it is, and then he walks out the door. And it's not like he's going to dinner with those people. There's no relationship like Customato had with Tyson. Whereas Tyson would at least listen to Customato. I'm not saying Tyson didn't go off the rails on his own, but it was after Customato's death. He had an entity there, somebody that was above him that could reach him and get through. And there's another common bond between Conor and Jon, is that they don't listen to anybody. There's nobody who can talk to him. Again, with Jones, Jones gotten away with beating his wife.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that relationship is like now, but and she must have forgiven him or whatever's there. But I doubt that she would be like, Jon, you let that woman take the test. Sit down. You let this woman do her job. Is that what, because she kept shut. Why? Because she I don't know what Jon's going to do to me. He's a loose cannon that way. His trainer couldn't say that to him.
Just to update, because I read a little bit here. Apparently, she was there with a colleague, so we know she wasn't alone. We had talked about that earlier. And apparently, he did give the sample ultimately. So we have to give some credit there that he did give the sample, even though he, had this back and forth with the testers.
Okay. At that point,
he did take her phone, though, which is a little bit odd. He took her phone and wouldn't give it back to her.
Yeah, I'll tell you that there is a possibility that he should face misdemeanor charges for some of that intimidation and behavior and taking a phone, not letting people feel safe. And that's up. There may be some type of charges legally that he can face. But at the end of the day, if they got the sample and the sample's free, then get him in the ring as soon as possible. We'll know more when the sample comes through. And I wonder if they test for alcohol. Maybe when she said he was intoxicated, he was drunk. What time is he? He said they got there early in the morning?
4 a.m.
4 a.m. 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Okay. That's unusual too. That's unusual.
Well, it's a surprise test. 4 a.m. would be a surprising time.
And you would have to know if you're going to get back in the roster that you do that sort of thing. But even if he was, like I said, even if he was drinking all evening, all night, and overdid it and fell asleep around 2 and woke up 2 hours later, he could still be showing the use of it. But alcohol is legal. And if that type of intoxication, I don't want to forgive it. You would hope a champion wasn't doing anything like that. But you start to see his path back into the ring.
Yeah.
It's not as bad as all, like I said, it's not as bad as if he was doing cocaine. The test come back for cocaine as positive, and if he was up all night, still partying when they walked in on him. So yeah, now a lot of the circumstances,
Yeah, that would be
yeah,
different.
it's interesting. And again, the part is this woman and a colleague. It's like that colleague was him that was it him that put Jon in line? Jon, you sit down and take this test. No, he was probably scared. If it was a he, even he was probably scared to death also. So yeah, it's just a bad, there's an idea that champions should be held to a higher standard, that they should be, presentable people, that they are also grateful to their fans and to the whole position that they're in and things. That really seems to be a thing of 50 years ago, It seems to be going further and further away from having, honor of being in a public position like that, He could be a big time role model kind of thing, but the idea of role models in your athletes and stuff is gone too.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about the whole 4 a.m. thing. That does seem a little. I mean, what would be the difference between 4 and 8?
Yeah, it seems to me that those entities have a way of also exercising their power in a way, to show, hey, they can do, they've got the power here. They can do what they want. You could be on vacation, Cancun. We could show up. We can get to your house at 4 in the morning. Anything like that. Yeah, yeah. 4 in the morning is sort of inappropriate, but it still doesn't excuse,
Right.
People trying to do their job. I'm sure that she didn't say, let's go there at 4 in the morning. She may have, yeah, maybe she did. But, more than likely they were like, okay, we know this guy's a problem and has had a history of problems. So let's try to catch him. Let's try to catch him off guard and get him early. That's probably the thinking behind the new group. If it was her on instinct saying, yeah, let's go at 4 in the morning, it's inappropriate. But if the idea was, you've got a problematic guy here, so we got to do something kind of extreme and catch him off guard, then she was just doing her job. So,
and that shows that the UFC is not pulling the strings with this new group.
at least that's what they would have you think, unless this is all scripted, right?
Yeah, I guess.
That's
Supposedly.
the other. If he fights, then you would have to actually think that could be possible, that they made this whole thing up
To draw interest.
Yeah, just like the George Masvidal, Colby Covington smack, and et cetera, which always has this sort of elusive, can't catch him, but the idea of a shadow or a fingerprint of control over them. So who knows? Who knows what we're all seeing? We're a mummer's farce.
Yeah, nothing came of that either. The whole
No, Colby's
thing.
right back. Colby got a couple of bigger paydays, title shot. He failed, and he still, got his old act. He hasn't come up with a new act, very similar to Conor. Same old act, same old boring shit. And now he finds himself mid card. He'll fade more. He'll be gone. And George, George retired, and like I said, George paid a lot of dues early, so it's hard for me, and I know him pretty well, so it's hard for me to say it, But at the same time, he also, because of being bombastic and loud, and at the end of his career, probably got more opportunities than he should have.
It's interesting how that happens.
Yeah. Yeah. People attract attention, and then all of a sudden they start having a get out of jail free card, one way or another.
Yeah. So it'll be hard to say. I mean, on one part, the 4 a.m. thing, I could see how a person be agitated. But on the other end, like you said, his behavior, you can't
Yeah,
excuse that. I don't think it would prevent a fight from happening between him and Stipe. At least I don't think so.
yeah. No, the thing is you got to be able to control yourself and not threaten a woman. Come on, that's just decency in behavior. Not that you're above the law or I'm going to I'm going to intimidate her just because it feels good at the moment or whatever his thinking is. He needs to be able to control that, and he's never been able to. So yeah. So I guess summing all this speculation and stuff up, if they got the sample, now we wait and see what the sample says. Because if he's positive for anything, steroids or drugs, or illegal drugs, then then the fight's done. But we'll see. If the UFC owns this company or is in control of this and stuff like that, they let Lesnar go. We might not even hear if he was positive, that he was positive. So who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing to have to think that way, but
yeah, you never know what we're watching with these people.
yeah, I think that's a great way to end on it. You never know what you're watching. You never know if anything's gonna happen or anything's gonna be done.
Yeah, or at the end, if it was a publicity stunt just to sell the fight more.
If it was, I mean, he got arrested, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's a publicity stunt. Well, he got arrested. Did he spend the night in jail? They let him go. They fingerprinted him. They let him go. Is he going to go to court? Is he facing 30 days in jail? He's done worse, right? He hurt a pregnant woman in a car accident that he fled the scene with drug
He was given a
paraphernalia.
summons, so I'd assume he's going to go to court.
All right, good.
Right?
We'll see how it goes. We'll see how all this goes.
Yeah.
There's more to come on this. Unfortunately, we're talking about this crap and not fights.
Yeah, it's a shame, especially with the two bigger stars of the UFC. Yeah. Well, as always, I like to let you kind of end on what you're doing with your the dog rescue stuff.
Yeah, no, same old business as usual. The rainy weather starting now. And that's our winter, and that means that dogs that are out in the wild or out, without owners and stuff are going to be exposed to some other conditions that we haven't dealt with in a little while, which, heavy rain in the afternoons and things like that. And it just leads to a whole bunch of other different problems. And if anybody's following any of this, Mingo seems to be doing well, which is the dog that had the back operation. He's gotten out to the backyard and he's starting to normalize and at least act chipper. So, again, no one's going to adopt that dog. So he's Ashley's for life, so at least she's taking care of him. And that's why, we feel we do ask for donations that they go to a good cause. It's things like that.
Yeah. As always, people want to donate. We have in the show notes where you can do that, which is a GoFundMe you can check out. And it's called the Wet Nose Project.
Yeah, you can look her up on Facebook. She's Ashley at the Wet Nose Project on Facebook, and she's got PayPals and things set up there. We've got the GoFundMe. I've got a PayPal. It all goes towards the same thing. So anybody who wants to help, that's great.
And as always, I want you guys to check out Miguel's channel, which is MMA Collector 74. He's been doing a lot of new stuff lately. So he's putting out a lot of content, historical content especially. Interviews.
Yep, Todd joined me. Todd joined me for a new segment on fight reviews, which is just get back to the basics. We're watching fights.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what this was all about. These talk segments have strayed away from, it used to be about, hey, what's the next fight's coming up? And this is this weekend's fights and things like that. And now it's always about something else, legal issues or problems like that. It's unbelievable. So I think it is a back to the basics thing where, Todd and I are just remembering fights that we saw, decades ago and rewatching them and bringing you along for the ride. So definitely it's a fun segment for you guys to check out. MMA Collector 74 is the channel. It's the MMA Museum Classic Fight Review.
Yep. So check that out, and as always, we appreciate your support here, and subscribe to the channel, leave comments, we'll address them. We all respond, and we appreciate the support. And until next episode, take care.
Live to Fight is the type of company that Dana killed. It's a homegrown. It's a guy that just does good work, and puts it out there. And if you can support him, you really should, because he's precisely a guy who can't. His banners may not be able to hang on to UFC because he hasn't been able to pay them $100,000 to get his stuff out there. That's the corporate stuff that we're talking about now with the UFC. That they've made everything at that level where it's all about money for them. And Live to Fight is a dude that does good work, makes you a great banner, and doesn't have $100,000 to get on the UFC and stuff, and deserves support. So any fighter out there, anybody out there, owner of a gym or anything like that listens to us, God bless you and thank you very much for your support. And extend that to Live to Fight, because he's one of us. Those guys are one of us.